I wake, silent, while my children put a price on my death. DNR today, my son tells the lawyer, before the will gets messy. Smuggling the scream, memorize every word, and start the war. My name is Richard Dawson, 68, a retired history teacher in Madison, Wisconsin. For 40 years, I taught students about truth, duty, and the weight of silence. 1 week ago, I should have died. At least that's what my children hoped. The room breathed in machines. Air hissed, a monitor sighed. I let my eyelids hang like stage curtains after the show's gone wrong. A fluorescent bar hummed overhead, so steady I could feel it in my teeth. Voices arrived before faces. DNR is an option, a man said, smooth as a lid being fitted to a pot. Ann Mills, the badge would say when I risked a slit of an eye. Lawyer, tie not tight enough to strangle the truth. It's better to let nature finish, my son added. Eric. I knew his whisper from the days he hid broken report cards behind the cereal boxes. It'll be easier to settle things. My chest burned at the word settle, as if I were a bill left unpaid. I stayed still, counting the clicks of the wall clock and the bump of the IV drip. The lesson of silence is simple. It lets the other person tell on themselves. A shoe scuffed, a sleeve rasped near my bed. Given his condition, Jordan continued, we should keep decisions centralized. You're already listed as proxy. I'll handle it, Eric said. He wouldn't want a long process. My hand wanted to move. My mouth wanted to teach. I did neither. For the first time since the ambulance's lights painted the ceiling of my skull, I set my own assignment. Gather, don't perform. The curtain rings clinked. A nurse entered, the soft thunder of efficient kindness. Vitals, she said. Her name tag swung when she leaned, and I caught the letters A-N-A before it turned again. The whiteboard over her shoulder was a tidy sermon. Tuesday, 6:40 a.m. Care plan review. Friday, 10 a.m. Bilingual, I breathed with the machine. In, out. An old teacher trick works anywhere. Let the talkers believe the room is theirs. Jordan's shoes clicked once more. We'll check paperwork with admin. You can sign any clarifications later. Disillusion, Eric murmured, already halfway out of the role of son and into something managerial. A low tide of cologne and caution. The nurse stayed, counting my breaths, watching my eyelids. When she lifted the cuff from my arm, I let a whisper escape, thin as a pencil mark. Could you? Water? She brought the straw. I sipped, slow. Her eyes flicked to the board and back. Anything else, Mr. Dawson? Later, I rasped. Thank you. She nodded, professional and human at once. The door sighed shut. I opened my eyes to a slit, then wider. The room was a map. Wall clock, whiteboard, the tray table with a plastic-wrapped spoon. The chair where my son had planned my exit. The corner where my old jacket drooped like a flag at half-mast. I tested the phone in the drawer. They'd left it, perhaps because a sleeping man is furniture. My hands were clumsy, but muscle memory is a stubborn friend. I set the brightness low, framed the whiteboard in the camera, then lowered the phone before it clicked. No photos yet, not today. Not while my son believed I was a rumor. My mind went to the yard at home, to the flat, warm stone by the hydrangeas, where I once hid a spare key in a list of emergency numbers. The stone was not magic, it was habit turned into ritual. Security buried in a little ceremony I performed with my thumb, smoothing the dirt around the edges. I pictured it now, and for the first time since waking, the picture felt wrong, shifted, as if a stranger had pressed it crooked. Confiscated, of rubber on linoleum returned. Eric, alone this time. He stopped at the foot of the bed and spoke to the blanket more than to me. I'll take care of everything, he said, a tone I'd heard when he was 12 and determined to assemble a bicycle with 2 different instruction manuals. No more hospitals. Pregnancies is a kind of chalk. You can write on it. Confiscated. Lean close. Dad? His breath carried coffee and stainless steel. If you can hear me, we're going to make this easy. Disillusion wanted to answer. My history told me to hold. He lingered long enough to count his devotion, then left. When the nurse, Alina, that was it, returned, I waited until she adjusted the blanket. Miss Alina, I said, voice a notch stronger, when Care plan review? Friday, she replied softly. 10 a.m. Thank you. I tasted the word as if it might be our password. She hesitated. Do you want me to call anyone? I studied her face. Kind, but trained to the rails of policy. Soon, I said. After I rest. Motion today. After of many die. She patted the rail. I'll be back in an hour. Again, I lifted the phone and opened the Notes app. I typed the only sentence that mattered for now, the sentence a younger Richard would have called a thesis. Jordan Mills, verify role. I saved it. Then I opened a text to myself, pasted the line, and hit send. The message landed with the faintest buzz, a firefly caught in the palm. I stared at it. The clock ticked. Somewhere, a printer chattered. I thought about the garden stone and the way the key used to bite my fingertip when I lifted it. Heart pulse, I am still here. I choose silence, not surrender. Teps in the hall, two voices, admin briskness and a softer apologetic tone, paused outside my door, then moved on. I cleared the text thread from recents until the screen looked like snow. The note remained in the drawer of my mind, where students used to keep their contraband. Close enough to touch, invisible from the front of the class. I lay back and let the machine breathe with me. The whiteboard's Friday glowed like a lighthouse through fog. The cuff hissed as Nurse Alina tightened it around my arm. Her badge tilted toward me, then away. She worked like someone who could fold a sheet and end an argument with the same motion. Could you call an old colleague? I asked, voice low, just to tell him I'm awake. Her eyes flicked to the chart on the wall. The discharge card at the corner read in neat block letters, tentative discharge, Friday by 5 p.m. A smaller line, care plan review, Friday 10 a.m. Dawson, she said, your son is the healthcare proxy on file. HIPAA means I can't share your status without his consent. I nodded as if she'd told me it might rain. Inside, something old and impatient kicked the table. I taught civics, what laws protect, what they can be turned into. Today, the shield had a handle, and Eric had his hand through it. Water? Yes, thank you. Her tone stayed gentle, the kind of kindness that's learned to live beside rules. If there's anything else, there will be, I said. Not yet. When she left, the room exhaled. I watched the Friday 5 p.m. line like it was a bell schedule. 2 days to be moved like luggage. 2 days to be awake and counted as furniture. Claire arrived with a soft knock and a tissue already in her hand. She had learned the shape of sorrow somewhere, television maybe, or a mirror. Dad, she breathed, laying her palm on the blanket. Oh, Dad. Hi, Claire, my throat worked. You look tired. I haven't been sleeping. She glanced at the whiteboard. They say, Friday? Cards on walls talk a lot. She pulled a chair close. Her eyes were wet and busy at the same time, cataloging the tray table, the drawer with the phone, the way a thief learns a room by heart. I shifted my hand half an inch, slow enough to be seen. I can help with your wallet, she said. Eric said you misplaced your insurance card. I signed what I understand, I said, the words calm as a chalk line. The rest can wait. Her smile held, bright and thin. Of course, you don't have to worry about all that anymore. Family tension exchange ignited. Demolished. The wallet, Claire? I'm just helping. Escalating. You're helping yourself to my decisions. Air. Fingers hovered over the drawer anyway, then retreated as the hinge squeaked. She stood. Do you need anything? Your lips look dry. Water's fine. She lifted the cup, watched me sip, and moved behind the monitor as if she needed the angle. Her purse settled on the tray table with the slow confidence of a claim. The phone inside it buzzed. A rectangle of light bloomed under the flap. She set the cup down, not quite steady. They want to discharge you Friday, she murmured. So the card says. Shome. Eric's handling the paperwork. It's a lot. I imagine. Her hand. Freed by haze, she tapped it, and a message preview rose on the screen for anyone not supposed to be watching. Find the garden stone. Key inside? The room moved farther away for a second. I smelled cut grass that wasn't there. The flat stone by the hydrangeas, my ritual, tilted in my head the way a picture goes crooked after a slammed door. Claire flicked the screen dark and tucked the phone closer to her wrist. "I'm sorry you're seeing me like this," she said, eyes shinier than before. "I'm seeing you," I said. It landed between us without heat. Nurse Alina stepped back in, a ring of keys chirping at her belt. "Mr. Dawson, I'm going to change your IV. Miss Dawson, visiting hours end at 6 tonight." Air straightened. "I'll be back. I'll bring photos to cheer you up." "Bring yourself," I said. "I'll do the cheering." She bent to kiss my forehead. Her hair smelled like a salon and a plan. Near my ear, a whisper, "We'll have you home soon." Kindness shut behind her, then adjusted the pump. "You have good color," she said. It was a statement and a kindness. "Do you ever feel like the rules were drafted for a different day?" I asked. She smiled without showing teeth. "Every shift," then softer. "Friday 10 a.m., we review. If you have questions, I can ask the PA to explain things directly to you." Cry our help. It wasn't a loophole, it was a step. A compass she left again, I lifted my hand and let it rest on the blanket the way it used to rest, on the smooth back of the hydrangea stone. The shape fit my palm in memory. I tried to feel grit. Heart pulse, helpless anger sharpened into a plan, like a pencil rolled under my thumb. The hallway traded carts and shoes. Somewhere nearby, a TV sold a miracle mop between weather alerts. I slid the drawer open an inch, felt the edge of my phone, and closed it again. Not yet. Paper first. Friday 5 p.m. wasn't a threat if I treated it like a deadline. Then I took a slow breath and stared at the discharge card until the ink felt fresh again. The whiteboard's numbers made a simple promise. Time would pass whether I lay here or made it count. The door opened on a small gust of perfume. Claire. "Forgot my tissue," she said with a little laugh. The purse followed the tissue, and the purse followed the tray, and what followed the purse was her hand, sliding the drawer open with a smoothness that made me feel both proud and ill. She peered inside, then closed it, smile restored. "I'll see you tomorrow." "I'll be right here," I said, and let the words carry the meaning they needed. She left. The room settled. And there on the tray where her phone had rested, my mind replayed the lit rectangle. 4 words bright as a theft. "Find the garden stone, key inside." I kept my face still and my breathing even. Then I folded my hands over the blanket, as if in prayer, and pictured my yard. The stone lay exactly where I'd left it until I proved otherwise. Evening thickened the corridor into a tunnel of light. I walked slower than pride allowed, one hand grazing the rail, the other guarding the IV pole, like a substitute teacher holding the room together with posture. The discharge checklist at the nurse's station announced, "Sign out by Friday, 4:30 p.m. The hour lived on the board like a bell waiting to ring. Confiscated me before I could turn back. "Dad," he said, with a smile designed to include the world and exclude me. He angled his body toward a nurse so his words could travel. "We'll handle the house and the accounts after discharge." Mole stood beside him, a tight knot of tie and certainty. "We've confirmed the proxy," he told the nurse, as if reading from a laminated card. "Any updates should go through Eric to avoid confusion." "Of course," the nurse said, eyes flicking to me, then the clipboard. I could have objected. I had practice at that, 30 years of grading essays that confused volume with argument. Instead, I nodded to the nurse like a man being introduced to himself. It landed like a joke without a punchline. "Mr. Dawson," Jordan added, softer, switching to the voice people use at funerals, "we're making sure you can rest." "Rest is honest work," I said. My voice did not rise or bend, only carried. Razier, he smiled the way a lid clicks shut. Eric leaned closer to the nurse. "Dad's always been independent," he said cheerfully, but he agreed he'd rather not be overwhelmed by paperwork, so we'll streamline. A visitor wheeled a cooler past, the wheels buzz-sawing the tile. A pair of teenagers in school hoodies walked by, laughing until the sight of my gown taught them manners. The hallway kept doing what hallways do, receiving stories and sending them away a little lighter. "Anything you need, Mr. Dawson?" the nurse asked me. She meant it. She also meant, is there a form to accompany that need? "Water when you have a moment," I said. Jordan's phone blinked. He swiped it and spoke to the air. "Yes, we have the draft." He didn't say the word DNR, but meanings don't need names to darken a room. I let the moment pass me by and stood at the edge of their little stage until the scene tilted. "Eric," I said quietly, "I want to look at anything with my name on it." "Of course," he said, as if I'd asked for another pillow. "You don't need to worry." Family tension, brief and sharp. I decide what I worry about. Constrained, you're still recovering. I'm still me. Just placed as if I'd agreed with him. "We'll coordinate with admin about discharge forms tonight," he said to the nurse. "He'll be comfortable at home by Friday." The nurse made a note. Her pen moved like a metronome. My eyes landed on a pit clerk's window. A thin stack of papers lay in its output tray. The top one stamped with hospital letterhead and the words discharge summary, draft. The header carried a tidy line of the day and a time, a clean little brand of reality. No one watched as I stepped close enough to read it. No one watched as I let the hem of my gown hide my hand. The phone camera made that friendly little swallow when it saves a frame, the way a room swallows a cough. I slid the phone back into the gown pocket and let my hand rest at my side as if tired. Evidence isn't loud. It shows up on time, like a teacher who knows the buses. Eric continued, enjoying the warmth of his own voice. "We'll list the house soon. Market strong," he said to the nurse, who had not asked. "Dad won't have to deal with the headache." "Headaches," I said mildly. Jordan glanced at me. "We'll keep it simple," he offered, the way a lawyer offers mercy to a form. "Take. Simple is a word for people who don't have to live in the result," I said. The line came out before I could stop it. Not a shout, a chalk line, straight as a hallway. He blinked, recalculating. Eric took a step closer to me. "Dad, you can trust me." Connection. "I taught you to be trustworthy," I said. "That's different." That landed. A visitor in the lounge looked up from a magazine. The room shaved a few degrees off its patience. Jordan cleared his throat. "We should let Mr. Dawson rest," he told the nurse. "We'll coordinate. Anything else you need?" "I'm fine," I said. "Thank you." I turned away first. In the family lounge, a TV smiled at a weather map. The coffee machine hummed like an insect. I chose a chair near the window, the city smeared in sodium and glass. In the reflection, my gown looked like a bad joke I was taking notes on. A volunteer in a blue vest rolled by with a cart of books and crossword puzzles. "Do you need parking validation?" she asked the empty air, the way volunteers learn to be found by the people who don't quite want to raise their hands. "Yes," I said, surprising us both. She passed me a visitor parking slip and a cheap pen on a string. "Write your plate," she said. "We stamp when you exit." Legalized slip over. The stamp was blank, waiting. On the back, a faint ghost of the last stamp bled through. A date, a time. Proof that time happens to everyone. I rose and walked back down the corridor as if I belonged there, because being alive is membership enough. In the passing, I caught the discharge checklist again. Friday, 4:30 p.m. in bold. It didn't feel like a deadline anymore. It felt like a challenge with a room number. Polishing and Jordan were finishing their performance with the nurse. "We'll bring in the listing agent Monday," Eric said. "Photo day, Monday 9, Jordan added as if he'd already seen the sunrise. The nurse looked between them and me. I gave her the smallest nod, the one I used with students who'd arrived late but showed up anyway. "Good night," I told them both. "Good night, Dad," Eric said. "Mr. Dawson," Jordan added, that calm lid back in place. I slept poorly, but not badly. The clock face in the room kept excellent time. When morning arrived, the world tried on a new shade of ordinary, a hospital ordinary, in which every conversation happens at the volume of authority. On my way to the elevator, the parking kiosk blinked. A guard with a stamp nodded at my slip. "You'll need the time," he said, stamping it with a quick thunk. He slid it back under the glass. The ink was fresh and absolute. a small brand of when. I put the slip in my pocket and pressed the elevator button. In the glass of the doors, I saw a teacher in a gown, holding office hours in a hallway that didn't know it had a class. Heart pulse, shame burned clean and left resolve, like a kiln leaving a pot stronger than the clay that made it. When the doors opened, I stepped in with my IV pole and my new habit. Names, times, lines. If they insisted on narrating my exit, I would insist on an index. The elevator hummed. The doors closed on their voices, and when they opened again, the slip in my pocket held the exact minute I'd left their stage. The yard smelled like damp paper. Dew clung to the hydrangea leaves, beating along the edge like punctuation. I walked straight to the border where the lawn gives up and the beds begin. The garden stone was wrong. Not obviously, no burglar's calling card, just a tilt. A crescent of brighter dirt along one side where a careful hand had lifted and didn't quite set it back true. I knelt and pressed my thumb to the cool face. Grit printed my palm. "Hello," I said to the quiet yard. "What did you let out?" I breathed once, slow, and slid the stone aside, palm flat so it wouldn't scrape. The shallow pocket underneath was empty. No key. No folded "in case" card I'd tucked there the year my wife died and I forgot what I had told whom. The hollow looked freshly combed. A cat could have done it, if cats also sent text messages asking where to find a key. I put the stone back, squaring it to the bricks the way a teacher straightens a crooked poster. Boundaries are partly performance. People treat the line you draw as real if you treat it as real first. Side, the house offered its same museum of me. The dent in the couch cushion, the oyster shell of a coffee mug, my jacket on a chair that was never meant to hold a man. I set my bag on the table and opened the blinds to let the day make its inventory. Blinked in the study had new freckles, tiny fresh scratches around the keyhole. Not many, just enough to smell like someone learning by feel. The desk drawer was neat in the way a stranger leaves something after deciding not to take it. Every object put back not quite right. That's the thing about theft. It teaches you to see your own habits with a thief's eyes. I took out my phone, forced my hands to slow down, and photographed the stone, the hollow, the scratches. One shot each, clean angles, no commentary. Then I opened the browser and filled out the city EMS public records request for the 911 catalog from the night I should have died. Short description, exact address, I added. Please include time ladder from first call to unit arrival, then read it twice, remove the please, and hit submit. The confirmation page stamped itself across my screen with bureaucratic certainty. Receipt number A1734, submitted 9:42 a.m. I pressed the power button so the screen would stay a secret. Evidence does its best work when it isn't made to feel heroic. My phone vibrated. Eric, rest. I'll stop by later. We can sort mail next week. I'm sorting today, I typed. Rest follows clarity. Disillusion. You're still healing. Don't stress finances. I decide what stresses me. Tay 3 dots pulsed, then disappeared. He called instead. I'll take care of everything, Dad, he said, voice bright enough to bounce. You've been taking care of a lot, I said. That's what family does, I said, a beat. Ask what? Permission. You're making this adversarial. I'm making it accurate. Look, the hospital may call. They prefer one voice. It's simpler. Newborn is for forms, I said. I am not a form. He exhaled. I'll swing by after lunch. Don't overdo it. Bring nothing, I said. I'm not hungry. He laughed once, a sound like a choke against the wrong pipe. Okay, see ya. I ended the call and sent no follow-up. The less chalk on the floor, the easier it is to see who's crossing lines. Coffee tasted like a lecture that needed a better first example. I walked the house slowly. Drawers opened and closed. The medicine cabinet offered its calm grid of labels. The mail had been stacked in a way I don't stack. I took one picture of the stack, then stopped myself from taking 10 more. The refrigerator door held the neighborhood's life. A takeout menu, a magnet shaped like a cheese wedge, a church potluck flyer with a cheerful font, First Sunday of October, 6 p.m. I touched the corner of the paper. A room with chairs and coffee and witnesses. A date that did not move. Stokes' pulse. Violation turns tidy in my hands. The only way I know to stop shaking is to arrange the facts until they stand up on their own. I printed the EMS request receipt from my email. Not for the paper, but for the ink smell. The small, human proof that something left this house aimed at daylight. I slid it into a clear sleeve in an old-school binder, the kind with a pocket for quizzes that needed regrading. New tab, medical, calls. Next to it, a second tab waited, house, access. Behind that, a third tab, blank, hungry, witnesses. A neighbor group text I'd been added 2 years ago when someone's dog kept escaping. Open house on Elm this Saturday, great comps. A small picture loaded, my front porch, cropped too tight to be public. Too public, not to be mine. No caption, no address, just a porch with a welcome mat that had seen one too many winters. I typed, wrong thread, and deleted it before sending. Then I turned the phone face down, pocket gravel against glass. Outside, a car door thumped. Mrs. Feld from 2 doors down appeared at the edge of my window, her terrier towing her by the leash. We have traded hydrangea cuttings since 1996. She saw movement in my house and tilted her head like a bird thinking about a windowsill. Her hand came up in a small wave. Kaiser, she saw Eric's car at the curb and let the hand fall. The terrier tugged her toward the corner. She did not look back. Blink there, watching the space her wave should have filled. Silence is a fast courier. The leash up, I put the binder on the table, centered it like a placemat. Then I walked back out to the hydrangeas, knelt again and pressed the garden stone flat until the edges kissed the dirt. I wiped my palm on my jeans, leaving a brown print that looked like a hand had tried to stay. Back where you belong, I said to the stone. To the house, I said nothing. I opened the front door to let air pass through, the way teachers used to when the room got too warm and the thinking slowed. On the table, my phone buzzed one more time. A new email from the city. Request received. Estimated response 5 to 10 business days. I didn't print that one. I said it aloud instead, then let the words evaporate into the house. Later, I carried the binder to the study and slid it into the shelf where I'd kept all the school yearbooks. A new roster. Same work. The terrier barked once outside like a punctuation mark. Closed my eyes, heard the page turn of a car's blinker, and opened them on my own living room made slightly foreign by other people's plans. The doorbell did not ring. The house did not shift. Good. I would be the one to move next. The copy shop smelled like warm toner and old errands. I laid the forms out on the glass counter the way I used to lay quizzes in a straight row before handing them back. No drama, just order. Healthcare proxy revocation. Notice to provider. Courtesy copies. Names spelled correctly. Dates checked. My signature clear enough to shame my younger hand. Imprisoned? The clerk asked, already reaching for the blue ones that make paper feel official. Envelopes, I said. Certified. Return receipt. She nodded, the flexion of the laminator's lid. I could see my shoulders square. Control doesn't arrive all at once. It returns in small, measurable clicks. My phone vibrated. Pastor Evelyn. Teal, proceed like you're writing a bulletin, she said. Short, factual. If anyone challenges, I'll confirm you asked me to be a neutral witness. Thank you, I said. I don't need a sermon, just a room with chairs. You'll have it, she said, and Richard, drink water. I'll put it on the list. At the USPS counter, the morning line moved on the patience of people who've mailed worse. The clerk looked over my shoulder, then down at the forms. Certified with return receipt? He asked. Yes, I said, all of them. He snapped open the green cards, lined them up, and pressed them to the envelopes with the flat of his hand. The montage of a life redirected took 3 motions. Peel, press, stamp. He slid each under the round dater and stamped at eye level, the ink landing with a small civic thud. Initial here and here, he said. I signed. He tore the receipts free and slid them toward me. The top one wore the time like a badge. Mun, 10:05 a.m. A single label ID trailed the minute like a leash. Expected delivery, I asked. He squinted at his screen. Wednesday by 3 p.m. for the hospital one. The others, end of day. He reached for the little rack of pens. Keep this, he said, as if the Bic were an amulet. I took a picture of the timestamp on the receipt. One frame, no filters. Then I tucked the receipts into a sleeve in my binder and closed the cover with a simple satisfaction I hadn't felt since the last day I taught seniors to diagram an argument. The eye-level letter had landed. Not a miracle, a proof. Discharged, sun hit the pockets of my coat. I thumbed a smooth pebble I'd taken from the planter by the copy shop door. A stand-in for the key that should have lived under the hydrangea stone. A substitute habit until the original one could be restored or buried for good. Blinked again. Claire this time, voice syruped with care. Dad, I heard you were at the post office. You don't need to handle paperwork, Eric's. I sign what I understand, I said. This I understand. You'll tire yourself. I can rest after. After I'm the one holding my name. She exhaled, a small gust that wanted to be a laugh. We're just trying to help. Help asks permission, I said. Control doesn't. That's not fair. It's exact. Windshield, he went quiet. Dinner tonight? I can bring soup. Bring yourself, I said. I'll do the chewing. She let the silence sit there, then said, okay, later. I walked home past a row of porches that had watched more lives than any courtroom. The USPS receipts rode the inside pocket of my jacket like a heartbeat. At the table, I slid them into the binder. New tab, proxy, revocation. The ink still smelled like its own proof. Heart pulse, the thud of the stamp steadied my hands. For the first time since the hospital, the room obeyed me. I printed the online tracking page and stapled it behind the receipts, not for redundancy, but so that when fear woke me at 3 a.m., I could feel the texture of a process that didn't depend on anyone's mood. Then I set a phone reminder for Wednesday, 2:55 p.m., 5 quiet minutes to breathe before the world admitted it had received me. The house ticked. Outside, a mower started 3 doors down. I rinsed the coffee cup and set it upside down in the rack. Control is a domestic act when you do it right. The doorbell rang. A clipboard and a wad of envelopes with rubber bands that had lost their confidence. You, Mr. Dawson? He asked, pronouncing it like Dawson. Unauthorized, I said. Right. Lots of papers on this block today. He glanced at the top envelope, then at my face. Wrong address, he decided, and scratched through a line on his sheet with a pen that didn't want to cooperate. Sorry to bother, I said. Tacky stepped off the mat and down the steps, already fishing for the next house. The terrier next door barked once like a gavel. I watched him go and felt the weight of the binder in my hand. The world was filling with other people's paper. Fine, I had started my own. The church office smelled like lemon oil and bulletins. Pastor Evelyn stood behind a desk that could have signed peace treaties. Sleeves rolled once, a pen resting on the crease of a calendar. I don't need a pulpit, I said, just a room with chairs and a screen that works. You can have the fellowship hall, she said. Potluck Sunday is already on the board. I'll pencil your projector time against it, but the AV card is shared. I'll mark it as tentative hold. Neutral room, I said. Neutral moderator. I'm very good at reminding people to speak one at a time. Her smile didn't ask for applause. Before I could answer, the outer door banged. A man in a courier jacket appeared in the office doorway, wind at his back and a letter in his fist. Delivery for Richard Dawson, he said, misreading me only a little. I'm Richard. I took the envelope. The lawyer's firm name rode the corner like a weather vane. Inside, cease and desist, in the kind of bold that tries to make nouns into threats. The letterhead carried today's date, WED, 4:41 p.m., and 3 paragraphs of polished menace. Words like defamatory and interference lined up like little soldiers, each pointing at my mouth. Pastor Evelyn lifted her eyebrows. Do I need to step out? Photographed. No, I said, it's a prayer in its own way. What do they want you to cease? Being witnessed. Secure, I slipped the letter back into the envelope and set it on the desk, not as a surrender, but as an exhibit waiting its turn. My phone pinged. Eric. You got a letter. Please don't escalate. Wildfires, your lawyer sent it, I typed. That escalates by itself. He's protecting us from slander. Tack and facts aren't slander. Three dots pulsed, stopped, started again. People are worried about you. You sound unstable. I breathed once and let the old teacher voice line up on the chalk rail. The lawyer hasn't met me awake. A minute passed, no reply, fine. Pastor Evelyn tapped the calendar. Potluck is this Sunday at 6 p.m. I can note your name next to the projector, but I won't call it a presentation. People hear that and expect debate. Call it evidence review. Short and factual, I'm showing, not shouting. Good. She slid a form across to me. Internal reservation. It keeps the fussy people from saying I didn't keep records. Punishable in phone number, and she scanned the sheet with the speed of someone who files before arguments start. I'll send a confirmation email, she said, typing, with the language, tentative AV hold so no one thinks you're booking the pulpit. That phrase will annoy the right people. It's a gift. She looked toward the window, where the afternoon was turning the stained glass into a slow parade. Will there be conflict? Reluctant, I said. I'm just moving it where daylight can find it. We walked the short hall to the fellowship room. The AV cart sat under a knitted afghan someone had mistaken for dust protection. The projector looked new enough to know where its settings lived. In the corner, a stack of metal chairs leaned like gossip. Try power, she said. The projector woke with a hum. I connected my laptop, selected HDMI 1, and let the blank screen fill the far wall. Even blank, it felt like leverage. We kept our words soft, as if volume could shake something loose we hadn't fastened yet. Tonight I'll label the cart, she said. Tomorrow I'll put a hold on the HDMI cable so it doesn't walk off with the youth group. Thank you. Richard will call me, some will ask me to cancel. And you'll tell them? That the church is a room before it's a stage. My phone buzzed again. New mail. Church office. Subject line, Potluck Sunday, 6 p.m. Tentative AV hold. The body preview flashed the time, the day did the rest. Countdown had a sign and a shepherd. Audio, pastor asked. Not today. I rested a hand on the cart. Today, I just want to know the room stays put. Unborn. It will. We stepped outside into the long shadow of the steeple. The walkway had a line of flat flagstones leading to the lot. One of them misaligned, a corner kicked proud by last winter. I crouched and pressed it down with my palm until it kissed its neighbors. Grit printed my skin the way the hydrangea stone had earlier in the week. Boundaries, public or private, behave if you show them you remember where they go. Eric again. Ambiguity. Approve the church. It's private family business. Families are public the minute they sell a house that isn't theirs. You're going to humiliate us. I'm going to restore the record. I pocketed the phone and let the replies try to invent themselves without me. A shadow moved above us. I looked up and caught the small dome of the exterior camera tucked under the eave, quiet, watchful, pointed toward the door. I gave it a nod I wouldn't have given a person. Pastor noticed. You feel better knowing it's there? I feel documented. She half smiled. I'll walk you out. At the curb, a minivan idled. A kid practiced a recorder in the back seat, heroically wrong. The sound stitched a human seam through all the legal cloth I'd handled today. Heart pulse. They want my silence notarized. I will notarize daylight instead. I thanked my car. The cease and desist rode shotgun in its envelope, suddenly less like a threat and more like a prop I'd set down in the right act. I drove slowly, the kind of slow that makes stop signs feel substantial. Take home. My binder opened to the proxy revocation tab, without me telling it to. I slid the lawyer's letter into a new sleeve labeled Legal Noise, then closed the rings with a small metallic verdict. The auto reply from the church chimed again from my phone. I didn't print it. I let the subject line do its job in the corner of the screen. Sunday. 6. On purpose. I walked back outside and stood by my own steeple, the hydrangeas. The garden stone lay exactly where I'd pressed it yesterday. Good. The house held. When I finally locked up and turned out the light, I saw my reflection in the door glass and thought of the camera over the church door. Witnesses come in many shapes. Tonight, mine got a nod. The admin office felt like a bank where the currency was names. A woman in a navy cardigan checked my ID, then the screen, then me again with the expression of someone who respects procedures because people don't. "Mr. Dawson," she said, "we received your revocation packets. I'm issuing a written confirmation and updating your chart." "I appreciate the precision," I said. She printed on hospital letterhead. The printer's rollers made a sound like a zipper closing a suitcase. The page slid out with a clean top line, date and time stamped by the system, and 3 sentences that mattered: proxy revoked, HIPAA access restored to patient, policy propagation within 24 hours. She initialed the bottom. "You'll have a PDF by email, but most folks still want the paper." "I taught history," I said. "Paper keeps its own promises." Nurse Alina passed in the hallway, caught my eye, and gave the smallest nod. In her face, I saw the relief of someone who doesn't enjoy telling grown people no. He led her across the counter. I read it once, not to understand the words, I'd lived them, but to confirm they now lived without me. One document, one timestamp. I folded the page, put it in my binder sleeve, and closed the rings. The sound was ceremonial. "Anything else?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "How fast do the changes hit the bedside?" "System-wide within 24 hours, she replied. "Some departments sooner." "Good, I'll give it a day before I ask anyone to act like it." Her mouth did what people's mouths do when a joke goes by wearing a suit. "Congratulations," she said, and meant it. In the elevator, my phone rang. Eric. I let the first buzz die, then answered. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. No preface. "You're making this harder." "I'm making it clear," I said. "We had a plan." "You had a plan," I said. "Now I have a letter." "You don't have to weaponize paperwork." "Unpredictable paper isn't a weapon," I said. "It's a mirror." A beat, then his voice rose and thinned. "You're going to embarrass us. Flexibility isn't cruelty. That's not what everyone will think. Everyone isn't my proxy anymore." Silence, then the click a person makes when the script runs out. "I need to go," he said. "Take, you already did," I said, and ended the call. Heart pulse. Relief hardened into a steadier feeling. My voice handed back to me like a book I'd loaned and nearly lost. I walked out into noon, carrying the letter like gravity. On the way home, I drove the slow streets, the ones with shade that used to make my wife lean her head against the window and name the trees. At my curb, I parked and stood for a second with my hand on the roof, as if settling a horse. Inside, I laid the letter on the table and read it aloud once, only to the house, then slid it into the binder under proxy/revocation. The binder had begun to feel less like a stack of paper and more like a spine inserted where the fall had loosened mine. The sink offered a glass. The faucet offered the sound of a day not interested in drama. I drank and looked out at the hydrangeas. Stone waited where I'd squared it yesterday. I went out and knelt, pressing my palm against its surface. The click, as it seeded into the soil, was small, almost polite. The absence of the key made more noise in my head than the stone did in the dirt. It's strange how missing things can rattle louder than what's there. I stayed there a moment, breathing the damp green smell that lives between leaves. A bee argued with a blossom. Somewhere down the block, a delivery truck sighed. Back inside, I set my phone timer for 24 hours, a countdown shaped like a circle that depletes itself. I labeled it policy propagation and laughed once, the dry laugh of a man pleased by a phrase that will upset the right people. Hilm, the email arrived while I was setting the timer. Hospital admin, confirmation of proxy revocation. I let it sit unread. The paper was enough for the moment. My hands found motion, wiped the table, rinsed the cup, opened a window as if sense required ventilation. Conserve phone rang again. I let it go to voicemail. Eric was not the only person who had my number when I was a teacher. Unscheduled calls were a profession. When the countdown reached the place where my eye felt it in my pocket, I sat at the kitchen table and opened the binder on purpose. I flipped past medical calls, past house access, and paused on the blank witnesses tab. Under it, I wrote 3 names: Nurse Alina, Pastor Nurse Timeline, Pastor Evelyn, EMT name pending, Catatis Master. The act of writing them turned the idea of allies into a list that could fit in a pocket. List don't panic. The wall clock and found it honest. The house had returned to the correct shape by degrees, like a face remembering its expression. My laptop chimed. A new message slid into view from an address I didn't know. Marla Kemp, Elm Street Realty. The subject line was bright as a hazard vest. Photo day, Monday 9 a.m. This weekend a visit. Under 9, a challenge, a visit. Email's first line, visible without clicking, read, "Hi Richard, confirming our photographer for Monday at 9 a.m. to prep the listing." Listing, photographer, Monday, 9 a.m. Lied. Took one breath. Let the anger pass across the surface like a cloud over water, and tapped the phone to stop the timer's little spinning proof of time. Family tension needed only 2 lines, and I gave them to no one but myself. They schedule my house like a dentist, I said. They forgot I still have teeth. Receiver the laptop. The letter in my binder kept breathing like a small animal asleep after being rescued. The day turned toward afternoon. The timer sat ready to be set again. Stabilized or remained unopened, its subject line shouting in a polite font. Ord's office had the hush of a library that only lends out time. I slid my request slip under the glass. The clerk read my name, then the address, then the date of the night I was supposed to exit. "Take EMS CAD log," she said. "You want the full-time ladder?" "Yes." She vanished into a back room and returned with a single sheet. She stamped the corner with a blue square that landed like a door shutting gently. Date, time, glowed in the ink. "First call logged at 9:22 p.m., she read, following the ladder with a pen. "Unit dispatched 9:39. Arrival 9:44. I let her words do the lifting. "That gap between 9:22 and 9:39, I said. 22 minutes, she replied. "Any corrections would be in a revision log. There are none. Thank you." She slid the stamp printout to the glass. I didn't ask for a copy of the copy. I took the original, nodded and folded it once, clean. 2 steps back from the window, I heard my own teacher voice, "Collect, don't editorialize." Outside, the air moved like a different policy. I tucked the page into my binder, snapped the rings, and walked to the car with the feeling of a small, square certainty under my arm. Tess. At home, I set the binder on the desk, powered up the doorbell app, and cued the clip I'd already flagged. Claire at my hydrangeas, moving the stone like someone who'd practice on a pepper shaker. I didn't watch it all. I set the export to run, saved to a fresh USB, then duplicated it to a second stick. Backups are a kind of prayer that doesn't ask anyone for permission. My phone chimed. Calendar. Photo day, Monday 9 a.m. The reminder filled the top of the screen like a banner hung on my porch without my say. I let the banner stand and added one more reminder below it. Do not interfere. Observe. Claire texted, "Venge, okay after discharge? Need me to pick up anything?" It will be. To keep things moving. Things can move without movers. Dots blink and die. Heart, pulse. Paper doesn't need me to argue for it. It breathes on its own once stamped. Kengnam thing this time. The clerk's stamp was my one visible cue today. The rest could stay in the cleaner room of digital copies and a list of file names that knew where to sit. IM'd again, export complete. I labeled the stick with a strip of masking tape and a date, then tucked it into the binder under house/access. The second stick went into the pocket of my jacket like a talisman that didn't believe in luck. I stepped onto the porch with the first good thought I'd had all day. Breathe. On the rail, a spare porch stone leaned against the post, a leftover from some long-ago edging project. I brushed grit off its top with my thumb and set it by the camera mount. Stone becomes ritual. Today it was surveillance. The sidewalk, Mrs. Feld appeared with her terrier. She looked up, saw me, and lifted a hand. Conserve saw Eric's car at the curb, the same angle, same color, same license frame that shouts a dealership like an alibi, and let her hand fall as if a string had been cut. "Take noon," I called, mild, She pretended the terrier had urgent business with a lamppost. From the kitchen, my laptop chimed twice, system sounds with no manners. I went back inside and closed the blinds halfway, not to hide, but to make the room feel like it belonged to one voice again. I stood in the dim and listened to the house take a longer breath. Family tension, not sent but said to the empty air. They're going to call this confusion. They're going to get corrected. The blinds whispered down the last inch. The stamped page in the binder warmed under my palm like something alive. The HOA hall smelled like coffee that had learned to be patient. Folding chairs made rows that believed in order. I signed the sheet by the door and took an agenda from a stack that had been straightened and straightened again. At the bottom of the page, someone had typed, "Community concerns" in bold, as if the font could do the heavy lifting. The bulletin board beside the podium offered its weather. Open house sat, 11 a.m., layered over church potluck, Sunday, 6 p.m. Flyers overlap when people want their priorities to touch. I traced the corners with my eyes and sat near the aisle where leaving would look like a choice, not a defeat. The chair called us to order with a gavel that was mostly for show. "We'll move efficiently," she said. Minutes approved. Landscaping, trash pickup, a raccoon that didn't respect fences. The room performed agreement in nods and hms. When she reached community concerns, I stood. Old habits. Wait to be recognized, then speak in sentences that carry their own legs. "Richard Dawson, Elm Street," I said. "I need 1 minute." The chair tilted her head. "Subject?" "Emergency response timing on the night of my accident," I said. "I have facts I'd like to state plainly." From 2 rows back, Eric didn't stand. He projected, "Moms." He caught himself. "My dad's still recovering. This isn't really an HOA issue." "That's why I said 1 minute," I replied. "Neighbors were there. Some of you called." The chair shook her head, sympathetic like a grocery clerk. "Mr. Dawson, we aren't a medical board. We can't adjudicate anything like that." "I'm not asking you to judge," I said. "I'm asking you to hear." Claire rose at that, palms open, voice soft enough to be confusing. "He's been through so much, we just want to keep things calm." "Calm is a good setting for facts," I said. Family tension lit in the row between us. "Oh, Dad, please," Claire said. "You're not yourself." "I'm exactly myself," I said. "You asked us to help." "I asked you to ask." Flushing. "It's exact." The chair tapped her pen, not the gavel. "We can't host medical disputes. This isn't the forum." I kept my voice even. There was a 22-minute delay between first call and dispatch. I'd like that sentence to exist in this room, where my neighbors live. Eric held up a sheet of paper as if a page could be a shield. Dad was confused at the hospital. We have a doctor's note attesting to diminished capacity that night. He didn't hand it to anyone. He let the paper exist in the air between us like incense. From my chair, I saw a corner of the letterhead, then his thumb slide to cover it. The signature block flashed and vanished. For a breath, I thought I saw the first initial wrong, someone's J where our physician signs with a looping P. Then the paper lowered and the moment went with it. "Mr. Dawson," the chair said, eyes kind and closed at the same time. "Please sit. This isn't our business," I said. On the sidewalk, with the porch light on, "but I'll sit." The room exhaled like a choir after the last chord. The next topic, parking on game days, thudded on. My body was in a chair. The part of me that grade stayed standing, writing marginal notes no one else could see. Room declines jurisdiction. Optics favor confused elder. Do not argue. Change venue. The open house AC at 11 a.m. flyer flickered in the edge of my vision. A half-dozen neighbors wrote the time in their phones. Potluck Sunday, 6 p.m. glowed underneath like a second chance someone had tacked up just in case. When the meeting adjourned, the room turned into a hallway. People funneled toward the cookies, toward their cars, toward not being involved. I caught the chair as she gathered papers. "Contagious for running a tight meeting," I said. "It's what I can do," she replied, then added softer. "I hope you get what you need, Mr. Dawson." "I will," I said, "just not here." At the door, Eric stepped into my lane without touching me. "You're making people uncomfortable," he said. "Foreground people listen harder," I said. "They think you're not at your best." "Then they can come watch," I said. Sunday. Claire hovered, eyes shiny, hands empty. Do we have to do this in public? Regazzer, I said, and passed them. Take on the sidewalk. The evening had the temperature of a gym after the game. Lawn sprinklers ticked. A dog negotiated a bush. I stood under the bulletin board's glass and looked at the two flyers again. Saturday, Sunday. The week had arranged my next two steps without a committee. Shrinks when it's asked to whisper. I'll give it a room that expects a full voice. At home, I set the agenda on my kitchen table. In the margin, with the dull pencil from the junk drawer, I drew a small garden stone. Oval, flat. A weight you could lift with one hand if you knew what you were doing. I shaded a crescent on one side where the dirt would be brighter if someone said it back wrong. My phone buzzed. A text from a neighbor. Saw you at the meeting. Awkward. I typed and deleted 3 things, then set the phone face down. The binder waited under my hand like a patient animal. The porch light clicked on by timer. Before I put the agenda away, I looked again at the space where Eric's paper had been. I could still see the corner of the signature block in my mind, the wrong initial, I was nearly sure. Nearly. Folded the agenda and slid it beneath house access, not as evidence, but as a reminder of tone. Then I stood at the sink and let the water run until it cooled into something you could drink on purpose. The week had decided on its instruments, a flyer, a hall, a screen. My part was simple. Don't whisper. Signature mismatch returned just as I turned out the light. There, then gone. The kind of doubt that sharpens a plan. The tech room behind the sanctuary had the pleasant clutter of a garage that fixed ideas. Cables coiled like tame snakes. The AV cart woke with a soft fan whir when I touched its button. HDMI 1, the volunteer said, a college kid with a careful ponytail and a name tag that read Maya. Projectors knew. If it misbehaves, it's usually the input, not you. I've been blamed by worse, I said. Pastor Evelyn stood by the door, hands folded like a referee who prefers handshakes to flags. We'll keep this short and boring, she said. Short is kind, boring is protective. Maya clicked through the menu. There it is. The fellowship hall wall brightened to a clean rectangle. I plugged in my laptop and opened the player. The first frame of the doorbell clip appeared, my hydrangeas in night vision grainy as a secret. We let it roll 10 seconds. Claire's hand, the stone lifted, the pocket below it dark and precise. Then I paused. I need one still, I said, to show how it played here. Maya nodded. Settings overlay? Exactly. She tapped the keystrokes and the projector threw up the info bar, input resolution, the system menu that proves we weren't faking a television show. I raised my phone and took a single screenshot on the laptop. The settings pane in frame, the system clock visible in the menu bar, the clip paused on the lifted stone. I saved it, typed Maya R at the bottom of the file note, and repeated it aloud. You want my initials on the call sheet too? She asked half-joke. Bribed to remember which honest person made the machine behave, I said. Smiled, we'll print nothing, she reminded, gentle and firm. Sunday is eyes and ears. If anyone wants copies, they can ask the people who own the documents. Defiance buzzed, Eric. Timeless, cancel your stunt. Arrogance, or bring a seat, I replied. Unauthorized. You're not well. I'm prepared. Once rewound the clip and checked audio on one low chime. No pops, no hiss, she said. We'll have a spare HDMI in case youth group borrows this one. Thank you, I said. The room feels like it knows what it's for. One request, she said. If the room heats, I'll slow it. Facts travel better at a walking pace. I'm not sprinting, I said. I'm showing. My phone rang, slick and insistent. Jordan Mills. I put it on speaker and set it on the cart. Mr. Dawson, he said, voice smooth as a laminated rule. I'm calling to advise you that any presentation of purported evidence could subject you to an injunction. We're prepared to file. You've been prepared to file since Tuesday, I said. Bring facts or bring a seat. A beat of surprise. This isn't theatrical, he said. Good, I replied. Then we agree on tone. Sunday's a review of timestamps and witness recollections. If you have a correction to any timeline, you can offer it in the room. Pastor arched an eyebrow, ready to intercede if the air got sharp. It didn't. Jordan shifted tactics. You're creating reputational risk for your children. They created their own, I said. I'm creating a record. He sighed. You'll hear from me. I prefer to hear from the documents. Kai. I ended the call. The silence that followed felt clean, not empty. Heart pulse. They think a warning is a wall. It's a signpost, and I'm following it to the door with the right hinges. Macavez, run it once from black, Maya said. We did. The night view surfaced, the small sound of shoes on mulch, the stone lifted. I paused at that frame again and felt my jaw unclench. Machines have no opinion about families. Pastor pointed to my binder. Tape your countdown where you can't ignore it, she said. I pulled a printed church calendar page from the folder, circled potluck D12 with a borrowed Sharpie, and taped it to the inside cover. 12, I said. It's a number that used to mean a dozen cookies after a meeting. It still can, she said. Just don't drip on the projector. Maya closed the settings. We're good. I'll label the cable and put the card in the storage closet with your name on the slot. Sunday at 5:30 for a final check? 5:30, I repeated, and added it to my phone calendar without letting the phone eat my attention. I made one more note under witnesses. Maya R., AV chain. Not because she owed me anything, because chain of custody is a story, and stories need characters who show up on time. On our way out, we passed the vestibule. A decorative stone bowl on the usher table held visitor cards and a handful of paper clips. I touched the rim. Stage set, I said. Pastor followed my glance. Rooms are honest when they know what they're for. We stepped into the evening. The sky had gone to slate with a seam of copper at the edge. As we crossed to the lot, a small red light blinked under the eave, the exterior camera keeping its watch. I looked straight at it and gave a small nod. Meta witness, I said. To what? Pastor asked. To posture, I said, and lifted the binder into the crook of my arm as if it had always lived there. We walked to our cars in companionable quiet. The sanctuary windows reflected us back, small and moving. My phone buzzed again, another text from Eric, unsent by me. I didn't open it. I put the binder on the passenger seat, checked that the screenshot file sat where I'd saved it, and started the engine. At the exit, I waited for the crossing light and watched the church in the rear view. The hall, the cart, the bowl, machines ready, people mostly so. The red camera light blinked again like a period at the end of a sentence that was finally written correctly. Pastor Evelyn slid a single-page note across her desk. It wasn't formal letterhead, just the church logo in 3 lines. Fellowship hall reserved understanding potluck, projector available, moderation. Pastor E, neutral. I won't circulate it, she said, but if anyone challenges, I can read from it. Rooms are calmer when they think someone took attendance, I said. She smiled. You'll do your showing. I'll do my shushing. My phone vibrated against the wood. Clinic scheduler was the caller ID. Mr. Dawson, we can see you tomorrow at 2:15 p.m. for a decisional capacity evaluation with Dr. Patel. Booked, I said. Please text the appointment. Bang later, the SMS landed and bloomed on my lock screen. Thursday, 2:15 p.m. Capacity eval, Dr. Patel. Location, Midtown Clinic. The timestamp glowed under it like a seal. Pastor glanced at the phone. You're stacking your steps. I'm done asking people to guess, I said. Wilmington out in the doorway long enough for the fellowship hall to show us it's quiet. The AV cart waited exactly where Maya had left it, the cable labeled, a promise in tape. Final check Sunday at 5:30, Pastor said. I'll be early, I said and meant it. At Dr. Patel's clinic, the front desk smelled like sanitizer and the ghost of cinnamon gum. A young scheduler in navy scrubs tapped my name into the system with a rhythm I trusted. You'll get a reminder an hour before, she said. Bring ID. If you have any questions about the assessment, I have one, I said. How long does a signed letter take to generate afterward? If you're cleared, we can produce it the same afternoon, she said, sometimes within the hour. Thank you, I said. I'll treat that as a hope, not an entitlement. Her grin was quick. That's my favorite kind of patient. The SMS chimed again with a confirmation ping. I held the phone so the screen, time and all, boxed itself into my memory. I didn't need to narrate. The phone did that part without rehearsals. Back home, I opened the binder and slid a small key charm onto the table beside the medical calls tab. Not the real key, just the reminder of what a boundary feels like when you hold it between finger and thumb. I wrote Thurs 215 on a sticky note and pressed it to the inside cover where Potluck D10 already lived in ink. The house had the sound of a day that knew it was midweek. A truck downshifted at the corner. The hydrangeas leaned against their own weight outside the window. I poured water and sat at the table with the binder open and the world quiet enough to think in complete sentences. Heart pulse. If they test my mind, I'll let it speak. I have no fear of the truth when it keeps the time. Psychic, the phone buzzed. Eric. Shelmome. Cancel the circus. Bring your facts, I wrote. We're begging you not to do this in public. This was public the moment you scheduled strangers for my porch at 9 a.m. Scribe, you're not well. I'm precise. Designates. A long pause. Nothing. I set the phone face down and checked the lock screen again. Capacity eval Thursday 2:15 p.m. Sitting there made the room breathe easier. Shellmoan, I made coffee to the metronome of the machine. While it dripped, I called the clinic line and left a single sentence for the voicemail. Richard Dawson confirming arrival 15 minutes early. Thank you. It wasn't necessary, but I have learned that people treat you like you treat their time. The inbox chimed. Jordan Mills. Subject line. Draft injunction. Immediate review. The preview showed exactly the amount of threat it needed to be effective without being specific. I didn't click. Instead, I opened my calendar and dragged a block over Thursday, 1:50 to 3:10, labeled it Capacity Eval, Speak Slow, Answer Precise. Then I flipped the binder to Witnesses and added Dr. Patel, Exam under Nurse Alina's name. The page looked steadier with the line there. Pages often do. A family tension knocked again, this time a call from Eric. I let it ring once before I answered. Competitiveness, Dad, please, he said, the word blurring at the edges. You don't have to. I'm going to the exam, I said. If I'm competent, we go forward with truth. If I'm not, you won't need to file a thing. That's not how it works. Works, I said, in this house with this name. You're going to regret this. I'll live with that risk, I said. You live with yours. He hung up. The dial tone used to be a sound. Now it's an absence. I let it sit there anyway. Instructional. The afternoon bent toward one. I stood, carried my mug to the sink, and ran water until it cooled. The key charm winked in a square of sun on the table. I put it in my pocket. Ritual earns its keep when you need reminders you can touch. At the door, I checked my phone one more time. The appointment SMS lived there like a lighthouse. Edge, 2:15 p.m. I locked the screen and set the phone down beside the binder, then walked to the window and looked at the hydrangeas until my jaw stopped setting itself like a trap. The inbox chimed again. Jordan, draft injunction, immediate review, same subject line, same bait. I opened the laptop, hovered the cursor, then closed it. The message could stay there like a coiled threat carefully arranged in a glass case. It didn't need my fingerprints yet. Tech, I wrote one line on a fresh sticky note and stuck it to the laptop lid. Facts first. Then I turned off the kitchen light and left the room exactly as I wanted to find it. Binder centered, key charm's absence noted because it rode with me, and an email I refused to dignify by opening. Dr. Patel's office had a clock that ticked without apology. He shook my hand, sat, and opened a thin folder. We'll keep this simple, he said. Orientation, recall, judgment. I'll ask you questions I ask everyone, or exams, I said. He smiled. Let's begin. Asked the date, the city, the clinic name on the door. He asked me to remember 3 words, apple, table, penny, and come back to them after a detour through numbers and a short story about a neighbor who finds a wallet. I returned the words in order and the lesson in a sentence. He pushed gently on the places where confusion hides and found purchase nowhere. Kish question, he said. If a lawyer tells you to stop speaking facts you can prove, what do you do? I show the facts, I said, in a room with chairs. He wrote one clean sentence, then another. You're competent, he said, signing. I'll prepare a letter. Today? Today, he stood. Give me 20 minutes. In the hall, Nurse Alina passed and brushed my elbow with her voice. Policy updates are showing in the system, she said. If anyone argues otherwise, they're behind. Thank you, I said. You'll get a call Sunday. I'll answer it, she said, and moved on. My phone buzzed. Eric. This eval is unnecessary. Necessary to you or to me? You're inventing hoops. Competence isn't a rumor, it's signed. He sent no reply. The clock kept its job. Elbows returned with a single page. I've stated my findings plainly, he said. He signed again, then handed it over with 2 fingers, the way a teacher gives a diploma. I read the name, the finding, the signature. No flourishes, no drama. Taken, I said. Take it somewhere, it will be read, he said. I intend to. By late afternoon, I was at the church AV booth with Maya. We ran a quick check. The doorbell still. The projector's rectangle. The way the wall accepts an image when you ask politely. Good, she said. Good, I said. I'll compile stills tonight. Don't add anything cute, Pastor Evelyn called from below without looking up. Sunday is not a talent show. I own no cuteness, I said. On my way out, I stopped in the hallway and peeled a fresh sticky note, wrote Potluck D9 and pressed it inside the binder. The number looked right there, close enough to hear footsteps. Heart pulse. The stamp lands. My hands finally stop shaking. At the UPS notary counter, a woman with a tidy bun slid a blotter toward me. Document? Capacity letter, I said. Witness stamp only. She read to herself, lips barely moving, then nodded. Raise your right hand, she said, and took me through the lines without ceremony. I signed where the arrow pointed. She lined up her seal and pressed slow and even until the paper took the impression like a decision taking hold. Anything else? She asked. No, I said, and didn't recognize my own voice, lighter by a fraction. She returned the page. The notary seal was clean and unambiguous, a quiet crest. I slid the letter into a clear sleeve and, with the other hand, thumbed the key charm in my pocket until its edges stopped feeling like a question. Leave it up, Claire. Dad, Eric says you went to some kind of test. You don't have to. I did, I said. I passed. Don't mean. It means exactly what it means. Mind could do this privately. We tried that, I said. Sunday will be public because the harm was. People will talk. Discharge, then they'll be busy. She breathed, a sound I knew from when she used to practice speeches in the bathroom mirror. Please come to dinner tonight, she said. No, I said, but thank you for asking. I paid, tucked the letter deeper into the binder, under a new tab, capacity, and stepped out into a sky that looked like weather was considering things and choosing to wait. The church's Potluck D9 sticky glowed when I opened the cover again to be sure the letter still existed. The binder closed like a book with a happy ending it refuses to spoil. On the sidewalk, my phone rang again, unknown caller. I answered and heard breath, 2 seconds of it, then the line clicked dead. A voicemail appeared, the same breath caught and saved. No words, I saved it anyway. Threatened and lined her on the table and lined up the tabs, medical/calls, proxy/revocation, house/access, witnesses, capacity. The order felt like a ladder a careful person could climb without looking down. Tide, I said to the quiet. D9. The hydrangeas brushed the window like a polite knock. I touched the key charm once more and let it rest. I did not call the block number back. I didn't need a mystery. I needed my list. On it, I crossed out one line, capacity letter. Then I wrote a new one, notary copies for Sunday do not distribute. Trimmed, the room settled. The binder's rings clicked once more because I wanted to hear it. Proof has a sound if you give it one. The knock arrived with a smile already attached. Marla, the listing agent from the email I hadn't answered, stood on my porch in a blazer the color of certainty. Eric hovered behind her, hands in pockets like a teenager waiting for the bell to save him. "Richard," Marla said, head tilted. "We're here for quick interior photos. Offers due Tuesday 5 p.m. We'd like to hit the deadline with the best light." I could see the yard rider beyond her shoulder. Offers due Tuesday 5 p.m. The letters caught the late sun and made a clock out of my lawn. "No interior photos today," I said. Eric stepped forward into the doorframe's air. "Dad, this is standard. Just 5 minutes. Standard for your listing," I said, "not for my house." Marla's smile held. "We have a key." "A key isn't consent." Her smile flickered, then returned. "We'd like to keep things moving." "I'll keep breathing," I said. "That's movement enough." Family tension ignited on the threshold. "Let her in," Eric said, jaw tight. "No. You're being unreasonable. I'm being the owner. That's the same thing in your head. It's the same thing on the deed." He exhaled through his nose, a performance for the hedges. Marla glanced at the street, where Mrs. Feld had paused mid-walk with her terrier and the politics of neighborliness pinned to her cardigan. She raised a hand, half greeting, half witness signal. "Richard," Marla tried again, gentle enough to be a tactic. "We'll be careful. We can even work around you." "Andatory. You'll work around my no?" I said, and shifted my foot so it rested just inside the jamb. A small geography lesson. Behind me, the doorbell camera lens stared over my shoulder. I let it. Blinked. "We'll note your refusal," she said, pen poised. "Note my sentence," I replied. "No interior photos today." Eric leaned in. "You're making this ugly. You scheduled strangers for Monday at 9 to prepare the listing of a home you don't own," I said. "You made this public. I'm making it accurate." Marla folded her pad with the crispness of someone who doesn't like handwriting in the wild. "We'll regroup," she said. "You'll recalibrate," I said, and closed the door to 2 inches from their noses. Enough to be polite, not enough to be an invitation. In the living room, the binder waited on the table. I opened House/Access and pulled the labeled USB from its sleeve. From the drawer, I took a tamper-evident bag, the kind I use for exam keys and cash jars when we did the school carnival. I slid the USB inside, peeled the strip, and sealed it. With a Sharpie, I wrote RD, sat 5:02 p.m. across the seal and initialed it. The ink sank into the fiber like it meant to stay. Dockbeat sealed, dated, initialed. Heart pulse being treated like fog in my own doorway hardened something I can use. Again, shorter. I opened to find a patrol officer on the step, hand resting light on his belt, eyes doing the math that uniforms do. "Mr. Dawson, we got a wellness call," he said. "Just checking that you're okay." "Iden hydrated," I said. "Would you like to see my kitchen sink?" Cleanliness, he blinked at the joke, then smiled, because I was a man his father's age and humor has rank. "Maybe just a quick, I'll speak from here," I said. "I'm competent and I have a letter." "Unauthorized. Don't need to see it," he said, palms out, credit to his training and to the church where his mother probably sings. "If I can look you in the eyes and you tell me you're fine, that's fine." "I'm fine," I said. "Anybody else inside?" "Just me and a binder that bites." Then nodded toward the street. "Neighbor said there's some family tension." "Neighbor's observant," I said. He tipped his hat to Mrs. Feld, who had turned her body into a question mark at the sidewalk. "We're good," he told her. She nodded back like a witness who wants to be neither helpful nor unhelpful, only gone. The officer tugged his notebook, considered it, and put it away. "Enjoy your evening, Mr. Dawson." "You too," I said, and closed the door at the same polite 2 inches, letting the latch kiss home. My phone buzzed. "Eric, you just embarrassed me in front of the whole block." The block embarrassed itself. US look like villains. Truth does its own lighting. Preempt 3 dots. Nothing. I set the phone down and went to the window. Outside, Marla snapped a picture of the house from the curb, then checked her watch with the performative sadness of someone whose product misbehaved. The yard rider under the for sale sign threw light at me. "Offers due 2:05 p.m. The letters might as well have been chiseled in the church's stone. I walked back to the table and pressed the sealed USB into the clear sleeve, forcing the seal to stick where I could see it without touching it. Chain of custody is a tone you hold in your hands. The doorbell chimed. Mrs. Feld stood on the step with her terrier, eyes wet with neighborly confusion. I don't want to be in the middle, she said. Disregard, I said. You're on the sidewalk. I saw you say no, she said, almost apologizing for seeing. I saw him insist. Then you saw enough, I said. You don't owe anyone a version. She nodded, relieved. The writer looks bossy, she added, a small rebellion. It's a clock without permission, I said. She smiled at that, the way people smile when they recognize their own thought dressed in cleaner clothes. Good evening, Richard. Good evening, Nora, I said, and felt the small weld of saying her first name out loud after years of Mrs. Feld. She moved on. The terrier approved the lamppost with paperwork. Inside again, I sat and let the room catch up to the day. The phone lit with a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I saved it without playing it. One breath later, a text from Claire arrived. Please stop. We can talk. I typed Sunday 6, then deleted it. She knows when. The house had that early evening feel of a gym after the game, echoes and scuffs and the knowledge that tomorrow's lines will be repainted. I walked to the yard, knelt by the hydrangeas, and laid my palm on the garden stone until the grit printed my skin. It gave slightly, then settled, like a word deciding on its final spelling. Taya. From the porch, the yard rider threw its command one more time. Offers due, 2:05 p.m. I stood, came inside, and, without looking away from those letters, reached up and closed the blinds. The room went dim and honest, the kind of dim where people listen. Rain began like static on the hedges, a sprinkle that made the hydrangeas bow their heads as if they'd agreed to keep a secret. I stepped onto the porch and watched the yard rider throw its instruction through the thin water. Offers due, 2:05 p.m., even wet, it shouted. Neighbor waved to someone behind me, not to me. A window shade lifted, paused, and fell. The kind of choreography a street learns when it decides which way to lean. My phone buzzed. Email. Jordan Mills. Hearing set. Tuesday 10 a.m. The subject line sat in the notification bar like a brick on a pillow. I didn't open it. The calendar tried to be helpful and blocked the hour for me. Blue and officious. Text. Eric. Concord. You're unstable. Please stop this show. Exclamation. See me Sunday, I typed. Exclamation plug. There will be consequences. Exclamation. File noise if you like, I'll bring signal. Exclamation. 3 dots. Gone. Exclamation. Another text, new thread, Marla. Exclamation. Reminder, photographer, Monday 9 a.m. Please confirm access. Exclamation. No access, I wrote. Exclamation. We can enter with the key on file. Exclamation. Signpost, not my door. She sent a typing bubble, then an emoji shaped like a smile that had lost an argument. The rain picked up, puppeting the for sale sign so it creaked a little. Somewhere behind it, a car idled too long to be accidental. Exclamation. Consulted it to the bed and pressed my palm on the garden stone. The damp grit printed deeper than before, grains mapping my lines like the earth wanted a copy. I held it there, then set the stone once, firm enough that it answered with a soft grind. Boundary under weather, boundary under siege, still a boundary. Inside, the house smelled like wet air and paper. I set the binder down without opening it and listened to the walls settle. The phone chimed. Again, email, 2. The top one, hearing set, 2:10 a.m. The second, draft filing attached. I let both sit like shoes I wasn't going to try on window. I watched Mrs. Feld choose the long way around the block, away from my porch. Her terrier looked briefly offended and then accepted the new route like a policy. Across the street, a teenager paused his skateboard and looked at my sign, my house, my face, then pushed off again. I used to teach that kid's uncle. The family resemblance showed in the way he pretended not to look. My phone rang. Eric again. I answered on the second buzz. This isn't healthy. Yeah, Sunday will clarify health. You're embarrassing us. Northwestern, you're confusing the spotlight with the content is... I can, I said, because I'm competent, and because the harm was public. He lowered his voice. A stage whisper aimed at the porch camera he'd maybe remembered. They're saying you called the cops on yourself. Came because someone dialed them. I stood in my doorway and spoke in full sentences. Forge thou family works. Exactly how history works, I said. We gather, we show, we remember. Sunday. He hung up. The line went to silence that felt less like an absence and more like an edit. I put on water for tea, a teacher's reflex for nights before exams. The kettle began to murmur. The yard rider held its pose in the rain, the letters sharper now that the light had dropped, the way paint finds its nerve at dusk. My phone hummed on the counter. Unknown caller. I let it pass to voicemail and watched the tape roll itself into the archive without sound. Text, Marla. Brigham. Will proceed per agreement on the key. There is no agreement, I replied. Berg the Nick confirmed. Shaded can confirm his own house. This one's mine. The typing bubble, started, stopped, started. No reply. Outside, a car door thumped. Footsteps paused at the curb. A camera phone lifted and took a photo of my porch. The shutter sound was fake and still achieved its purpose. Heart pulse. Pressure stacks, my course doesn't move. PSG, I carried the mug to the front room and sat where I could see the window without being seen well. The street slowed under the rain until it felt like an aquarium. Shapes, gestures, bubbles of talk I couldn't hear but knew the taste of. Wellness had become the neighborhood's new word for gossip. It's less accusatory than crazy and easier to launder. Amic badge ticked up one more. Hearing set, 2:10 a.m., stayed on top like a headline trying to grow into a fact. I let it sit there. If Jordan wanted a reaction tonight, he could print his own. My phone buzzed again. Voicemail from Claire. I put it on speaker and set it on the table face down. Take. Her voice came small and careful, as if she'd borrowed it. Dad, I'm sorry this got messy. I didn't want any of this. Can we please not do Sunday? I'll come over in the morning. We can talk without everyone. She breathed. The mic caught a tissue noise. I love you, she said. Please. The message ended. The phone asked if I wanted to delete, save, or call back. I pressed save and set the phone farther from me, like you set a hot pan on a trivet and let it cool without touching it. Family tension answered with 2 lines I couldn't send to anyone but the house. You can't say sorry and keep the clock, I said. And you can't sell my silence like a chair. I stood, crossed to the window, and watched the rain work the street down to shine. The yard rider glowed in the streetlight. Tuesday, 5 p.m., like being said out loud, even by weather. Line back, the blinds half open, so I could see the storm finish its sentence. Then, I turned off the kitchen light and let the house write the last line of the night in shadow and drip sounds. The phone offered me one more option, call back like a cat bringing a dead thing to the door and hoping for praise. I ignored it. I picked up the mug, tasted the tea's flat end, and set the cup in the sink without rinsing it. On my way to the hall, I pressed my palm to the garden stone one last time, through the screen of the open window. The grit printed again, darker now. I wiped it on my jeans and didn't check to see the mark it left. I lay the phone face down beside the binder. The badge count on the inbox stayed red. Claire's half-apology voicemail sat saved between 2 messages with Jordan's name on them. I didn't call her back. The fellowship hall smelled like coffee in crock pots. On the bulletin slide above the serving table, a cheerful serif held the countdown still. Potluck tonight, 6 p.m. The clock over the exit door clicked to 6:12 and Pastor Evelyn tapped the mic and asked for quiet. We're neighbors, she said. We'll keep voices low and facts plain. Mr. Dawson, you have the floor. I walked to the lectern with my binder under one arm and set a smooth pebble, a pocket garden stone, at the edge of the wood where I could see it. A boundary, small enough to carry. Heart pulse. I kept breathing while they planned my exit. Tonight I keep speaking. Maya stood by the AV cart ready. Projector on, she said just loud enough. The wall brightened to a clean rectangle. 3 pieces, I said. Time, access, capacity. To Maya, the first slide filled the wall. The EMS CAD log with the clerk's blue stamp deep in the corner. The time ladder ran like a spine down the page. Turbulence, steady. First call 9:22 p.m. Dispatch 9:39. Arrival 9:44. That is 22 minutes from call to dispatch. The room shifted. Folding chair sounds, a single spoon in a ceramic bowl. The stamp was visible enough that even the back row could see the square. The on-duty EMT, a man with forearms like responsibility and a name patch that said, Cooper, raised a hand from the second row. Pastor nodded him in. I worked that night, he said. That ladder matches our tablet logs. No revision filed, no error on the page. Thank you, I said. From the aisle, Eric stood without being called. Dad, you're making the neighborhood think. Good. Good intentions don't change timestamps, I said. No heat. We're on time right now. Pastor's hand hovered near the mic. One at a time, she said. Mr. Dawson? Access, I continued. I nodded to Maya. The screen went to night vision. Hydrangeas, the curve of the bed, Claire's hand lifting the garden stone, the pocket beneath it dark. A few people gasped without meaning to. We let the clip run 5 seconds, then paused on the lifted stone. This is my doorbell camera, I said. Playback authenticated on this projector at this location. Maya, your initials are on my chain of custody note. Maya spoke into the room without leaving the cart. I verified playback here Tuesday and again tonight. Aber, I recognized from the HOA hall, leaned forward. That's your garden? Faroud go. It is, I said. That's my stone. Claire stepped down the aisle like a person measuring a plank across water. I was looking for a policy card, she said, voice thin at the edges. Dad misplaces things. You were looking for a key, I said. We can discuss why later. Tonight we're putting the minutes and the motion on the same table. A ripple of low talk. Jordan Mills stood near the side wall. No tie tonight. The pose of a man who prefers rooms he can control. This is defamatory, he said, not asking for the mic. We're prepared to seek an injunction. Pastor didn't look at him. Sir, we'll hear from witnesses and then, if time allows, counsel. Jordan's mouth did the thing a lid does when it thinks it should be the pot. Capacity, I said, and lifted a single page in a clear sleeve. Dr. Patel's letter signed yesterday. My decisional capacity is intact. I didn't throw it on the screen. No new seals tonight, but I read the finding once. Plain. In short, I can decide. Nurse Alina raised her hand. The hospital chart shows the proxy revocation and HIPAA access restored. System propagated by Thursday morning, she said. If anyone told you otherwise, they were quoting yesterday's screen. A murmur near the wall, Mrs. Feld whispered to the neighbor beside her, then lifted her chin. I saw Richard refuse the agent at the door, she said, surprising herself with her own volume. He said, no interior photos, I heard it. And I responded to a wellness call, a patrol officer added from the back. Mr. Dawson was alert and appropriate. The room moved a half-inch toward me. I kept my hands on the lectern, feeling the little stone under my palm like a metronome. Family tension rose on the stage lines. Eric, we were trying to protect you. Me, you planned my exit. Eric, it wasn't like that. Misuse, like the words you use by my bed. A beat. He flinched, the small, honest one that knows a line got called out. Claire's voice arrived softer, unsteady. I shouldn't have touched the garden, she said. I was scared. Einberg, believe you were, I said. Fear doesn't move stones without asking. Pastor glanced at the clock. 6:27. We'll take 2 more statements, she said, then closed the floor. Wildfires, Jordan tried again. These are edited clips, cherry-picked. Wait, Isaiah raised a hand. They're not edited, she said. If counsel wants to inspect the playback chain, he can do it after we adjourn, with a witness. Jordan's mouth set. He pocketed his phone without looking at the screen, the rarest tell. Turbulence that belonged to me alone. I have taught students for 40 years, I said. Tonight's lesson has 3 parts. 1. 22 minutes is not an opinion. 2. The stone moved without my consent. 3. I am competent, and my voice returns to my own name. The wait in the second row, a spoon gently touched a bowl and stopped. Pastor nodded toward Eric. Son, she said, not pastor and not judge. You may say one sentence if you have it. Then we're done. He looked at the screen where the pause frame held Claire's hand in the act. He looked at the stamped CAD page again, as if a number might change with enough staring. He looked at me. He swallowed. I'm sorry, Dad. The room did not exhale. It waited. I didn't move. I let his sorry sit where it landed, not to punish, but to let it find its own depth if it had one. Claire's hands came up to her face without tears yet. I shouldn't have, she whispered. I thought. The sentence broke and didn't try to fix itself. Tack. From the wall, Mrs. Feld put her hand on her terrier's head and faced forward like a woman who had decided which way to lean. Jordan's voice, smaller now. We will review. You will, I said. So will everyone who heard 22 minutes and saw a hand move a stone that wasn't hers. I lifted the pebble from the lectern, weighed it once, and slipped it into my pocket. Boundary restored. Pastor stepped to the mic. No more statements, she said. No crossfire. She looked at the clock. 6:39. We're adjourned. I closed the binder. The hall noise returned in small clicks, chairs, breaths, a metal spoon tapping its own rim because it needed a sound. Eric stood there, eyes shining and unsteady, not approaching, not leaving. I didn't step toward him. I let the record stand and the room carry it. Monday smelled like coffee, deciding to be useful. I sat at the kitchen table with the binder open and the porch light still on from last night. The way a stage manager leaves one lamp lit for ghosts. My inbox pinged at 9:06 a.m. Marla Kemp. Request to withdraw listing? I called the broker before answering the email. Ackoff's voice came on, crisp and rehearsed. Brokerage operations. Minimized, but this is Richard Dawson. I'm withdrawing consent to list. Remove the signage today. Confirm in writing. Until a pause. Keyboard noise. Understood, Mr. Dawson. We'll issue a listing withdrawal confirmation by email. Effective time will be the system log minute. Thank you, I said. Please copy your managing broker. Will do. I hung up and replied to Marla's message with one sentence. Withdraw the listing now. Consent revoked. Then I set my phone to speaker and called the bank. Fiberglass, an access team, a woman said, tone like a gate that knows who has a pass. Swallowed our ID re-verification and card reissue, I said. Remove authorized users Eric Dawson and Claire Dawson. Send written confirmation. She took me through the steps with the practiced gentleness of someone who has helped clean up more than one family's mess. Appointment for signature verification at 2 p.m. today, she said. Bring ID. We'll print new cards while you wait. The doorbell chimed. I opened to find Marla on the porch with a smile that knew when to be smaller. We received your email, she said. We'll comply. For the record, we were acting on instructions from minimize was never given, I said, for the record. She inclined her head. I'll have the sign pulled by noon. Send the confirmation. Of course. Tension stepped into the doorway on a delay. Eric stood at the walkway, hands in his jacket pockets like he'd borrowed them. He came up 2 steps and stopped. What now? He asked. Now I enforce, I said. No keys, no accounts. He nodded like a student who finally understands a rule isn't about him. I'm sorry, he said again, less public and more costly. I heard you, I said. Remorse is a start. Access is earned. How? He asked, not with defiance, but with the bare hands of someone who set down his tools. Time and deeds, I said. Return the spare keys today. Put in writing that you'll clear any house decisions with me first. Bring receipts for anything you've moved. He swallowed. Okay. Claire? I asked. She wants to apologize, he said. She's ashamed. Both, I said. She can also be on time when I ask. He exhaled and nodded again. I'll bring the keys by noon. Hand them to me, I said. Not the mat. He went down the steps the way people go down after sentences land. Marla retreated to the curb and took a photo of the sign, as if the image would make letting go easier on the database. My phone chimed. Inbox. Brokerage. Listing withdrawal confirmation. I opened it and let my eyes catch the timestamp in the header. 9:12 a.m. The subject line did the rest. Listing withdrawn, effective 9:12 a.m. I took a single screenshot of the subject line and time and slid the email into the binder under House/Access. Micro peek. Administrative click, consequence on record. Haum. Pulse. Justice is quieter than I expected, mostly stamps and doors that stay shut. I forwarded a short no-access notice to the HOA address with a courtesy line. Owner present. No interior access authorized. The reply came from the chair. Received. Board acknowledges owner's directive. No exclamation points. Good. At 1:45 p.m., I walked into the bank and let the fluorescent lights flatten me into a citizen. The officer checked my ID twice, then printed new cards with the patience of a librarian. She handed me a small stack of account change notices and slid a pen across the desk. Initial here to revoke authorized users, she said. Sign here for reissue. Squeezed. She stamped. The thud was civic, not dramatic. She clipped the old cards and put them in a small bin that made a sound like a drawer closing on a past version of a house. When I got home, Eric stood on the porch with a key ring in his hand. Claire was beside him, eyes swollen from the kind of crying that has decided it will be private even when it leaks. He held out the keys. All of them, he said. The ring clinked like a concession. Blazing them and counted by feel. Kitchen door? I asked. He added one from his pocket, sheepish. I forgot it was separate. Claire spoke small and clear. I'm sorry I touched the garden. I was wrong. Thank you, I said. You'll each get an email tonight. It will say no access without my permission. In writing. If you agree, reply yes. Unlocking, she said. Unthinkable, Eric said. There will be a scholarship, I added, surprising myself. In your mother's name. We'll talk about that later, not today. Airedale, different versions of relief and penalty, then stepped back. Do you want us to? Claire began. No, I said, and softened it. Not now. Steps together and turned left, as if the street had given them a direction. On the table and opened the binder to place the listing withdrawal confirmation in a sleeve. The subject line showed through like a plaque, effective 9:12 a.m. I added the bank's appointment note behind it, then closed the rings with an even click. The HOA chair replied a second time. Signage removed. Board notes owner's directive. The line looked like a flag taken down at dusk. HO another kept its appointments. At 3:10 p.m., the brokerage van pulled the for sale sign and loaded it into the back with a practiced lift. I watched from the window, without waving. When they drove off, the lawn looked bare in the way a wrist looks bare when a watch comes off. Lighter, honest, a little pale where a circle of shade used to be. I stepped onto the porch and seated the garden stone one last time. Palm pressed until the edges kissed dirt. Then I put the pebble, the pocket version, back in the junk drawer where I keep paper clips and old locker combinations. Boundaries can be small when they hold. Keep the phone chimed one more time. Listing withdrawn, effective 9:12 a.m. I didn't need to open it again. I looked at the screenshot and dropped it in the binder's index folder, a last act of neatness. Family tension asked quietly from the doorframe. What now? Now the rules hold, I said to the empty room. Now we see if the apologies learn to work. I set the binder in the center of the table like a completed course catalog and turned off the porch light while it was still daylight. No ghosts tonight, just a house that had its name back. Thing. By morning, the house sounded like itself. Justice, I learned, is patience wearing receipts. It doesn't roar, it simply holds. I woke up to a home that answers to my name again, and to children who must learn the same clock I trust. On the porch, I pressed the garden stone once, edges kissing dirt, a small click and stop. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. Type 1 if you resonate with this story.